Chilling. So, just going to talk about things I learned during my first extreme diet. So, things I learned through my first extreme diet. Obviously, everyone's definition of extreme dieting is different. My extreme diet led to a contest prep. It led to 10. So, I went through these emotions multiple times, but I got better with dealing with them. I'm going to explain what they are. Your version of an extreme diet might be losing 20 kilos. It might be a photo shoot. So everyone's is different. So things that I learned during my first diet is, your first diet is typically your hardest diet. Why? You don't realize how long it takes to get really fucking lean. And I mean really fucking vascular. Then you also don't realize how lean you need to be. So people will be like, I want to get abs, I need to lose 5 kilos. You probably got to lose 10. You probably got to lose 11. It's always more than you think. Do you know what I mean? So one, I wasn't aware how hard a diet was and how meticulous I had to be. Do you know what I mean? Not how restricted, but how meticulous. Because, I had a fair few flexible diets in my time, but how meticulous I had to be to what was written down. So a few of the things you sort of go through, and I went through, I went through phases of being extremely lean and dragging my feet on the floor, counting down my sessions. I remember there was a period of time when I was training in Abu Dhabi out of Oxygen, and we had a trainer. I used to clock watch and be like, all right, 20 minutes left. All right, 2 exercises left. And I used to hate my training, period, just due to my body being exhausted and under fatigue. So this is something I took away from this. So, over time when I prepped further and further down the line, I used to say to myself, Jace, you know what, at 6 weeks out, you're going to be fatigued, you're going to be on the floor. So make that conscious effort to go in there with the mindset of smashing the session. So, when I first did my first diet, I thought, these dudes that I see on Instagram, they just get lean, have fun, train hard. Things take a hit, and things take a hit. Your training takes a hit. Your mental capacity at times can take a hit. Mine did at that time. I was in a very different place in life. Your relationship, at that time I was with a partner, that relationship took a hit. And when I talk about that relationship taking a hit, when you go through that first prep, this is where the sport can be deemed selfish. You either learn from it or you don't, and you're selfish. I was with a partner at the time, 3-4 weeks out. Every night, I was so fatigued, I just used to get in bed and face the wall. I used to get in bed, face the wall, because I was fatigued. The more preps I did, I realized that isn't the norm. Well, it is the norm if you're on prep, but it isn't the norm because your partner's not prepping. So I made the conscious effort. I knew at 4 weeks out, I would be so fatigued. I made that conscious effort when I got into bed. You're right, darling. Make them conversations that, when you're on prep, every conversation is draining your energy. Your fuel tank is here. Every conversation is chipping away. But again, these are things which are not spoken about when guys are embarking on their first contest prep, on their first photo shoot prep. These things you have to take into consideration because it can be a selfish sport. So be aware you might be a bit short, and I'm not talking short as in snappy, you might be a bit short in how much you speak to your partner. How much you put out, how much affection you show, how much energy you put out. Them Sunday walks become less and less. So do bear that in mind. I remember that first prep, it always sits with me, like my first ever show, like I used to get in bed and I thought it was normal. Oh, babe, I'm tired. Boom, get in. Boom, I'll face the wall, she'll face the other way. Like no affection, like what's going on? And then, as I did more and more preps, I realized that, you know what, Jace, yep, you can get in, you're tired, make the effort. People don't realize this, and that's where it's deemed a selfish sport. So that was one of the things I learned early on is your mannerisms, the way you treat people. I knew if there was a family function at 4 weeks out, I've got to make the conscious effort to speak more and be more in the moment and be present. One of the things I always say to guys is when you're on prep, you got 2 people on prep. Not going to go to any social event, dig myself in a hole, or I'm going to turn up to a social event. But be aware, if you're going to turn up to a social event, try and be a bit more present, which is going to take and consume some energy. So those were some of the things in my early days of prepping I learned very fucking quickly. And I was like, damn, like I tell people, if you're going to do a contest prep now, be aware, you're going to be a bit fatigued. There's going to be days you're not going to want to train. There's going to be days you don't want to do cardio. There's going to be days where your affection's going to drop towards your partner. So do bear these things in mind. And in them early preps, what else did I learn? I learned about something called mental fogginess. And if you Google this, it's a real thing. Like, mental fogginess is where you are in a fatigue state, so you're not delirious, but your mind's not functioning in the correct manner. There was many times I was very lean, and I'd look in the mirror and be like, oh, I'm not that lean as I want to be. And that's mental fogginess. My mind was just clouded with the opposite thoughts of what I was. And this happens quite a lot. Like, I get guys at 2-3 weeks out that I think are absolutely peeled. And they'll be like, oh, I'm not that lean, I'm not that lean. And then also, like, luckily in my first extreme diet, I worked with a coach. But if you are doing it yourself, give yourself more time for an easier prep, because the clock starts ticking. If you do a 12-week summer diet, and before you know it, it's 8 weeks. Before you know it, it's 6 weeks. Before you know it, it's 4 weeks. Give yourself more time. Structure more time, just in case you do have that fuck up on your diet. Do you know what I mean? So another thing I also learned was you have more to lose than what you think. Do you know what I mean? I would pull down 10 kilos and I'd think I'd look extremely great. I'd check with my coach and he'd be like, you're as lean as your fattest body part. And typically for males, that is your love handles, your oblique, your love handles, etc., etc. So you're as lean as your fattest body part. We lose fat quicker in certain areas, and certain areas hold on to fat, and it's much harder to lose. So you're as lean as your fattest body part when your goal is to be extremely lean. So these are just a few things sort of I went through. I realized in my preps, like in my extreme diets, these are the things I learned, was sort of just sharing my experience. So if you come across this, you might say, do you know what? All right, at least I know at 6 weeks out, 4 weeks out, my feet might start to drag. Do you know what? I have got a partner. I am a bit short on energy. I'm going to make that conscious effort to put my partner first and continue with my prep. So just a few things. And when you are extremely lean, your mind, unless you've done it many times, your mind will play tricks on you. So do bear this in mind. Just sharing some of my experiences of some of the things I learned doing an extreme diet phase.